This is Chris from Therion, and you're listening to What's Metal?
Okay, once again, you are on another tour. This doesn't match with the comment you made a few years ago that you won't go on any further tour after the Tele album because it's difficult to play all the stuff live. What's the reason for all these tours you did after the Tele?
Well, we picked up a lot of technique stuff that made things that were impossible before possible. Like orchestration is put on digital tapes now, and the drummer play with a click. I mean, if we would play everything authentical, then it would be impossible. So, by on the advice of our management, working with different techniques on stage, we were able to do it. But still, it's a pain in the ass for us. It's much harder than for a regular band, you know, and much more expensive. Even now, when we're headlining, we break even, you know.
Are you forced to do tours by Nuclear Blast, or is it in the last your own decision?
It's always our own decision. They can't force us to do anything. We have a good relation with them also. They wouldn't like to force us to do anything, you know. We do what is sensible, and they would advise what is sensible. But like when we tour headline like now, we don't get any tour support, so we have to make this work economically by itself. Otherwise, we can't do it. And that's why the tour is quite short, because having 10 people on stage costs a lot, and to transport 10 people costs a lot. Sorry. So we can only play those places where we get enough paid, otherwise we lose money, and when we lose money, the record company won't put in any money to cover it. So that's why we tour 3 weeks instead of 2 months.
Do you think that your live shows are too static when the drummer plays on click track? You can't stop a song if you fuck up or something like that.
That's true, but he's very professional, and I mean the playing wise is better with a click. You can groove more because you can relax more, and you have the click. I mean you don't listen to the click when you're used to it. You just have it somewhere in your head, and you can groove with the click. A drummer which is really good with the click, he play better with click than without.
Okay, you're on tour with Voivod. I think this must be like a dream come true for you. Is that right?
Yeah, especially specifically asked for it, and kicked our management's asked to get them. It's really cool. I can see them every day now.
Okay, let's have a look at your recent history. The last 3 outputs: Woven, Crowning of Atlantis, and Degial. I think you reached a point of unique symbiosis between metal and classical orchestration. What do you think? Where will the way lead you to in the future? Are there any points that you can still improve in this style, or what new extremities can you reach with Therion?
No idea. I have absolutely no idea what I do in the future. I'm just as surprised as anyone else. So I don't know. But there's no such thing as the ultimate perfection. Things can always get better. So I guess if we would continue in this style, there's still more things you can do. And like you can see the difference between this album and the Woven album. We added on woodwind instruments such as oboe and flute, and with a lot of brass instruments like saxophone, bass tuba, trompeten, French horn, and flugelhorn. And we also used klassische Schlagzeug, things like that that we didn't use before. And there's still some instruments that we didn't use, like the fagot and other instruments. So I guess we could experiment a bit more with that, but we always do something different with each album, and it's not going to be like this for sure. But what direction, no clue. But I think also people get a little bit deaf for the changes, because they're used with so dramatic changes that they expect always the new album to be something completely revolutionary. But I think if Woven was a debut album, people would really react, wow, it's really different with the new one. But since we did TLE, people are a little bit immune against that. So I guess many people will say in the future that we kind of found our style. But from a composing point of view, we do a lot of changes.
The cover artworks of your last 3 outputs all had the, I think, nearly the same coloration. Everything this yellow-brownish style. And do you think that people might get confused if they get interested in Therion and want to buy a new record by Therion? They go to the record store, look at the covers, and they cannot visualize which is the new one, because you have no visual aspect on the covers. you get lost perhaps in all these releases. Don't you feel?
I don't think they're that similar that you won't see the difference between them. But if they don't know the band, they don't know how the new one look anyway. Um, well, there's a lot of things that are different. Like with the new one, you have the logo in the middle and all that stuff. With this little black blood, I think it's quite different. But you're really correct that the color settings are quite similar. But I think the new one is more brownish and the other one is more oranges. I just happen to like it, and when they managed to make another cover that I liked with these color settings, I just said, well, let's go for it. It suits the music very good, but well, I think now we did what we could with this coloration. So, but we just do things we like. We don't think that deep into it, like what people are gonna think of this and that. It's quite a rock and roll attitude to it. We just do what we like.
Do you sometimes feel the need to play brutal death metal again? This really rough and heavy stuff?
No, I wouldn't be able to write good death metal songs. We did what we were supposed to do back then, and well, playing wise, maybe would be fun to play one song from the first or second album again. But the problem is that people don't recognize it today. We did Bald Reginon from the third album before, and 10% of the crowd were completely happy, and the rest was like, "What's that?" So we have to play songs that people recognize, because people pay the ticket to see us, and well, that's the point with a live performance. You should play the songs people like.
Your music often reminds me to some Oriental themes or Egyptian themes. If you would have lived back in the ancient times in Egypt, what would have been your job or your profession?
In ancient Egypt, I would probably be a priest. Yeah, of the set, of the old tradition, the old Therion draconian things. They were actually quite hated in the when the Osirian tradition came up, the more light Egyptian religion that took over later. But I would probably be a Typhonian priest.
Okay, of course, you had slaves back then. What would your slaves had been working for?
Great statue of Set.
A statue of you.
No, of Set.
That was typical back then, or statues of your own?
It was not typical back then. In the very early,
I think it was typical to create statues of pharaohs or similar things.
But pharaohs were humans. Set is quite similar to Odin, up here, Wotan, in a few ways, or Baal. They're well, not completely similar, but you can find links between it, and yeah, that would be a cool thing to do. There's no such thing preserved as a big one like that. Make it out of a yardi or something like that.
Okay, concerning your composing abilities, is there any ability that you miss, or is there something in composing that you really aim for?
I always learn. I mean, I don't have any classical education, so I learn by every album. There's so many things in classical you can learn. I think I will learn for the rest of my life, and even people that are classically educated, they also learn for the rest of their lives. So there's no such thing as being perfected in that area. But I'm getting better and better in realizing what I want. Because when I hear a song in the head, before I had the problem to make it sound on the tape what I heard in my head, and I'm improving all the time, to be able to channelize that. Because when I write a song, it's always spontaneous. It's like a little demon singing into the air, and I need to somehow get it out of my head, down on the tape.
Okay, the lyrics on Degyal are again written by Thomas Karlsson. What has been the last lyrics that you wrote for any Therion song? Do you remember?
On Tiali. Which one was that? I don't remember what order it was. Maybe in the Destructor's Head.
On Degyal there is a song called Via Nocturna, and in the second part in the lyrics a name gets mentioned, which is called Nahema. Who is Nahema?
I don't comment on lyrics. I don't comment on lyrics that way. I stopped doing that, these explanations, especially when it's translated, because I've been, no offense against you or anyone specific, but I've heard the most strange things in magazines of things I explained, and especially in France, I explained a lot of things, and what they wrote in the magazine, they could have asked anyone on the street, and they would have had the worst things, so I don't comment it, and the lyrics, they are not meant to be understood. Then we would have written it in English and with no explanations. So since the Woven album, I stopped doing that. I usually explain the theory, the main we call it this the song title I explain. But apart from that, no comment. People have to buy books if they want. Simply because it's been misunderstood, and a lot of serious people into this think I'm an idiot when they read my interviews.
I asked after this name because in Germany there is a famous role-playing game called Das Schwarze Auge, or it's in English it's called Realms of Arcania, and there is a magician, a woman, which is called Nahema, and I think it's perhaps they adopted this name from another source. I don't know.
I've seen role playing. They take all these kind of names. I mean, classic demons like Asmodeus, Astaroth, Baal, Adramelech. All these ones you can find in role playing games. Old characters like Nama, Nahema. You can find Lilith. You can find all that stuff in role playing. They take religious historical themes and put into it because it sounds mystical. And that's another reason not to speak about it. Actually, it's something I'm fed up speaking about is the lyrics because it's so seldom that it gets understood what you say. And I mean, originally we thought of not publishing the lyrics, just have them not write it in a booklet. But then I had so many requests for it, so we thought, okay, let's write it there, but it's not meant to be understood. There's actually one guy on the net, which is very serious. He's trying to translate all this stuff, and sometimes he did quite impressive translations. I'm very impressed. Sometimes it's completely over the rainbow, but it's because we mix so many things. It's sometimes it's Akkadic language, sometimes we used Latin, sometimes we used Hebrew, we used ancient Egyptian, we used ancient Greek. But when we wrote the Greek lyric, we wrote it with Tabanian letters. So first you need to translate the letters from Tabanian to our letters, and then from ancient Greek to English. So this is a bit tricky. Enochian we used also. So it's quite a mix. It's fully understandable if people don't understand it. And Thomas Carlson, he has a library with over 1,500 books, personal library with only this type of books. And he has an academic title from the university in religion history. So people don't need to be ashamed for not understanding the lyrics.
He is the founder of the Dragon Rouge. Is that right? Yeah. You are also involved in there. Are there any other known metal guitarists or metal people that are involved in that Dragon Rouge?
Not so many. It's of course there are metal people in there because among metal people there are many people with an occult interest, but they're not more metal people than it should be normal. It's not a metal order or anything. I think it might be like 25% metal people.
Wondering because I think you do the most promotion for this just with Therion.
It's not volunteer. People ask. I don't know why, but Nuclear Blast found out and they wrote it in some press kit. Actually, they wrote very strange things, in it. But then people got curious, and then they had these questions, and then they read some other interview, and they continued to ask. So it's not intentional.
In the internet, I found only very little about this Dragon Rouge stuff. Only that there seems to exist a certain technique, which is called lucid dreaming, in which you control your dreams.
Wachträumen. Und die Astralreisen. Diese Technik ist die beste Methode für die higher magic, whatever that is in German. Well, there's different types of magic, and many people are interested in this material, very low magic, but we don't work much with that, try to get more money at your account or childish things like that. It's more experience-based, and we mix both from shamanistic techniques, which is basically only practice. They don't read one book in their life, and all this old Hermetic Kabbalistic tradition, of course, that Golden Dawn and OTO is working with, but we try to modernize it. It's so old-fashioned. Someone has to do the revolution today, like Crowley did back then. I mean, imagine if someone would say, "Well, why should we have computers and stuff? We have already invented the steam engine." Yeah, someone has to progress these things, and yeah, that's what we're doing mainly. We're trying to create new techniques that are more suitable for our society today, instead of getting buried in the past, only reading medieval books. Of course we take the jewels from the past, but we have to go on and progress. Also, we're more open than many others.
And through this lucid dreaming, you can control what you do in your dreams. Is that, if I understood that right?
Yeah, but that's just one of the first stages for something bigger. Like if you can control your dreams, it's easier to leave your body completely. And when you dream, everything is very foggy. You know, you don't feel a physical presence very much. When you actually leave your body, it's the opposite. Things get over clear. You know, you feel everything more than you do in the normal state of mind. But the interesting thing with Wachträumen is that you will have the same control over what you do or what you think, like you have now.
So you can say, right now I'm dreaming to go to bed with Britney Spears.
Yeah, then you would at least revelate that you do it. That I want to fuck that ugly chick anyway. Taste.
Bad taste. Yeah. Okay, who's better? Maggie Thatcher?
Lee Aaron. Lee Aaron. Just a stupid answer. No, I don't know any normal girl that doesn't have 5 kilos of makeup in her face. No.
Do you think that she had done some plastic surgery with her breasts?
Probably. Yes, that's her life. But
Right.
I don't like this. What do you call this in English? These dolls who stand in the window when you look into a store with clothes. I don't like girls looking like that. Also, I don't like them when they're so thin that you will break them in 2 pieces when you touch them.
Okay. You lived for several times for a short time in Germany. You know some German vocabulary I just mentioned.
But my speaking is terrible because I don't know the grammar. It's dir, der, das. I will never learn that shit.
Perhaps you know some swear words for our listeners.
Yeah, Scheiße. No. Schweinpelz. I probably remember them if I get pissed off. Arschloch.
You had some guest appearances in other bands. Let's start with Liars in Wait. What can you tell us about the session you did with them?
Oh, that one. How do you don't remember that? Well, Christian wanted to record his mini CD and he didn't have a singer and he liked what I did with Therion, so he just asked if I want to do it. And quite complicated songs, but he sent me a tape and I just looked it over 3 days at home and went to the studio and did it. It's just a friend thing, you know. Yeah, but I never did anything live with it. Just it's a favor to him. Because he was doing the paintings for the Therion covers at a very good price. I thought, well, I'll do this for him, you know.
What was the first cover he did for you? Was it Beyond Sanctuary? Is that right?
This is quite.
Then we talked about Messiah in the last interview already. There is a band called Megaton or something like that. You did something for them. I don't really know what it was, but
They played some kind of electronic pop and they wanted some guitars for it. And well, I got well paid to do it. So I just went to the studio and they had no clue like how you play electric guitar. They said, "Oh, we want some electric guitars and stuff." And like, "But you don't know what you want me to play." But, I'll just play something. And like, play something. Okay. So I was awake the whole night just trying to play something to the stuff. It's not very well played because I was awake all night, like 5 o'clock in the morning, and just trying to play something. But you know, made some good bucks out of it, and they just wrote Chris on the album. So I told them, "Don't write my name. It's not really my stuff." But well, it's fun to do something different. But I also think they did a terrible job mixing it, you know.
okay. And then you have done something for a band called Blitzkrieg. Is that right?
Blitzkrieg was actually Therion with a different name in the beginning. In '87 we formed Blitzkrieg. And I played the bass at that time, and then I changed to guitar, and we played like Venom, old Metallica, Motorhead kind of style when we were Blitzkrieg, and then we thought, let's start playing death metal, you know. At that time in '87 it was very rare, and we thought there was more possibilities, you know, than just copy Motorhead, you know. So I switched to guitar and we changed to Mega Therion for a few months, and then we changed it into Therion.
Have you released any demos with Blitzkrieg?
No, we sucked. Completely sucked. I mean, we learned how to play our instruments together, except the drummer, he knew a bit, but the guitar player had played for 1 year, and I played the bass for 3 months before that, so it wasn't very good.
When you started with Therion, the first demo was Paroxysmal Holocaust, is that right? And the vocals were done by Sennebeck of dismember, when I'm right. How were the connections back then? Or was he a member of Therion back then?
Yeah, Matti Kerki was a member, but we didn't get along very well, and well, we had different views on things. Like he didn't show up rehearsals and stuff like that, and we were very serious, and he was more like a rock and roll. So we thought we wouldn't work very well together. So he went to Dismember instead, and I started to do the vocals, which was terrible on the second demo. Beyond the darkest veils of inner wickedness, fucking title. I did a terrible job on that one. Sounded awful. But we gave it another shot for the third demo, which actually was called Time Shall Tell, which we later released on vinyl.
Oh, it was a demo. So the Time Shall Tell was a demo. Ah, okay. Okay, have you been involved in any other underground death metal bands back in the 80s or the early 90s that you recorded any demos or LPs with?
We did some kind of Carcass rip-off band called Procreation, me and another guy, but we just did a demo, sold 100 copies or something like that. But just for fun. I mean, it's not fun to do a rip-off band. Just to check it out, tune down the guitars as much as possible and do it melodic with pitched vocals.
So, our last question. The show is called What's Metal? What is metal for you?
Pretty much a lifestyle, I would say. I mean, if it wasn't for bands like Accept and Judas Priest, I wouldn't be playing guitar. When I was 10-year-old, I wanted to be like Wolf Hoffman or KK Toning, and because of that, I started to play guitar. So it's really a lifestyle, and I still listen to metal. I mean, we brought lots of Maiden and Accept with us on the tour, and actually, especially Accept, really meant a lot to me growing up, and they still mean a lot. You can hear that on the album. So I think that's the best damn metal band ever.